Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to MandoLessons Live. A little bit of a mix-up here with starting out with the electric mandolin. I figured this week, if people want to hear any electric instruments, I got the amp plugged in. Hopefully it's coming through all right, because I often get questions about them, but I don't have the whole rig set up. So here's your chance. If you see anything behind me you want to hear, go for it. I'll try to pull them all out. I don't know if we'll be able to get to everything, but we'll give it a shot. So, let's see who we got in the chat. Hope you all got something tasty to drink and a mandolin in your hands, because we got Denise and Jim, Stuart, Peter, Joe, Ian, James, Patrick, John, Edward, Joe, James, I'm repeating myself already, Sheldon, Betsy, Neil, Jane, Adele, Ant-Man, Typing Hazard, Eric, Edward, Ursina, Stuart. Alright, welcome everyone. If this is your first time, let me know. Let me know how long y'all been playing, all that sort of stuff. I love seeing the chat fly by quicker than I can get to it. The way this thing works is you ask questions, I'll do my best to answer them. I'm happy to play tunes if people have requests, as long as they're not copyrighted. That first tune that I started with is the tune of the week, the Connomann's Rambles. So we're going to play that tune, lovely Irish jig, at the end of the hour. Let's see see what we got here. We got some weather reports from all across the world. Great to see it. Yeah, it's spring is almost here in some parts of the world. Do I use a different pick with this thing? Yes, so this is an odd beast. I'll start out talking about this a little bit. This is a 18, and I don't know what to call it. I think the guy who built it, the company is Rano. I got it used recently, and it's 18.5-inch scale, so it's kind of like a long scale mandola, but because it's electric, you can tune it a little lower because you don't need all that string tension to drive an acoustic instrument. So it's actually tuned like an octave mandolin with a really short scale. G, D, A, E, and then a high B on top. So that gives you a couple options. One, you got that octave mandolin. It also gives you the option to put a capo on G, A, B, C, the 5th fret, and you get a regular pitched mandolin, G, D, A, E, on the top 4 strings with a low C. So it becomes kind of like a 5-string mandolin with a low C, kind of like my Smart is tuned. So it's kind of a dual purpose instrument that I've been hunting down for a while, and I'm excited to get to know this thing. I do use a different pick, so I'm using, let me get this thing to focus. I use these what are they? Dunlop? Yeah, Dunlop nylon picks. This one's a 1.14. In general, in like the Tortex, the colored ones, I tend to make it like a 1mm or like the prime tone 1mm. But I find with the thinner picks, I kind of wear through them pretty quick, and the nylon is a little more bendy than the other materials, so I beef up the gauge a little bit. And then I'll often also use on like bouzouki and tenor guitar, I'll use the Dunlop nylon. What is this? A .88. I guess I'm using all Dunlop picks, not sponsored, but I use the Dunlop Prime Tone while I'm showing off picks. This one's totally, they wear off their little insignia pretty quick, but yeah. That's the Prime Tone 1.5 large triangle. I guess I like what Dunlop does. They've been in the game a long time. Cool, glad the electrics are coming through. Yeah, so the tune was Connomann's Rambles. We're going to play that at the end. How about that tenor guitar on the end? Which end? I got one on both ends. I got the Sunburst one over there, and I got the Telecaster tenor over there. Take your pick. Ursanos, good news, now has the Eastman in hand. Arrived. Amazing. That's a great story. Ursanos was gifted a mandolin. Amazing, amazing gift. Glad you're getting used to it. That's a lovely thing. Aaron saw the Bread and Puppet posters. Yep, I love Bread and Puppet. Grew up in the Northeast. Got to see them in Glover. And seen them a bunch when I was in the Northeast. Love them. Ian says, I've played guitar since the 70s and I'm awaiting the arrival of an Easton octave mandolin. Wondered if you could please do some tunes on an octave. This is my first time on the live show. I don't have an octave mandolin out right now. I have a lot of tenor guitars. I actually don't really have an octave mandolin at the moment. I have an instrument being built that is kind of like, it's a 10-string instrument that's a combination of a mandocello and an octave mandolin, if that makes sense. So it's C, G, D, A, E, but octave and big. So when I get that, I will have an octave mandolin, but I actually don't currently. I love those Eastmans, though. I've owned a couple of those Eastmans. Great mandolins. You can put some slightly heavier gauge strings on them that really kind of helps with GDAE tuning, in my opinion. That said, you know, it's personal preference, and I don't want to tell anyone to put heavier gauge strings than should technically go on the instrument, but I use those light mandola D'Addario strings. I think they're EJ, what is it, 72, maybe? Is the light gauge mandola strings. I was using those on the octave Eastman, whatever the light mandola strings, and I really liked that for GDAE tuning on those Eastmans, because they have a slightly shorter scale. Alright, let's see. James says, I guess my question regarding amplification is back. Have you ever had an acoustic mandolin with an internal pickup? What are your thoughts? Oh geez, I haven't really. I owned, for a while, my main mandolin was a Fender. It kind of like looked like a Stratocaster. It had like the 2 points. What is it? The FM62E, F-holes. It wasn't my favorite acoustic. It didn't really sound like a bluegrass mandolin. It wasn't the most amazing acoustic thing. But I played it a lot in college when I was playing some jazz because it had a piezo pickup under the bridge. It sounded okay. I think piezo pickups have come a long way from, you know, back when, I don't know, like 20 years ago. Piezo pickups I didn't love, they were all kind of pretty thin and brittle and harsh, and you needed to use a lot of EQ to really dial them in. So I have not had a mandolin with an internal piezo pickup on it in a while. What I tend to do is I just put I don't have it right here, little Audio-Technica gooseneck clip-on mic, often in smaller situations. You know, it's not going to work if you've got like a drummer or a horn section behind you, because it'll feed back. But you can, I think it's a lot more natural sound to have a clip-on mic or play into a mic. That said, I think piezo, I've got a lot of friends that play with piezos, or like the K&K internal pickups. I've heard good things about those recently, and I've been thinking about maybe getting them on a mandolin or into a tenor guitar or something. That's a good question for Mandolin Cafe message boards. Let's see, try to keep up with the chat here. Gibson's BC, same time zone as me. Good to see you, Doug. So the octave this thing is Rono, R-O-N-O. I don't know a whole lot about him. He's been around for a long time, kind of in and out of the scene. I would say look him up on Mandolin Cafe if you're interested. I got this used. Maybe I'll just leave it at that. If you want the whole history, look him up on Mandolin Cafe. I'm gonna try to stay neutral on the subject, but a little bit of a kind of a history there. Anyway, going on. Let's see. Awesome. Adele's been practicing Hammer-ons regularly. What do I do with them in Irish music? Great question. I will get an acoustic mandolin to talk about Hammer-ons. So, let's see. Hammer-ons. So I don't use Hammer-ons a whole lot in Irish music myself. I use them more in old-time music. I really like the sound. So what Hammer-ons do is they kind of change things up from, having you need to attack the string every time to get a note. So like, that's my pick hitting the string every time there's a new note. Some Hammer-ons would sound like this. So just kind of, it smooths things out a little bit. I like the really kind of percussive nature of every note getting a strike from the right hand in Irish music. But in old time music, I use them a little bit more. So like you think about like Coleman's March. So what's going on there is a bunch of Hammer-ons. Hammer-on, 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 Hammer-on. So that gives it a little more kind of like bouncy and a little bit smoother nature versus to go. It just gives it a little different flavor. I would say the thing I recommend with Hammer-ons and pull-offs and triplets and tremolo and all that sort of stuff that's like a technique on the instrument for ornamenting a sound is just try it everywhere. Try to put a Hammer-on or a pull-off everywhere you can. You'll find out where it works, where it feels natural, where it doesn't. And pretty quickly, you'll get a lot of practice of actually performing the technique, and you'll get better at it really quick in the context of a tune. And you'll also learn, like, hey, where do I like the sound of this, and where does it feel natural, and where does it feel good to do? That's a great question, though. Oh, ships are sailing. I'm not gonna be able to pull that one up out of the top of my head. I think I can play along, but it's been a long time. Ooh, Oscar says, been using my fingerpick style from guitar when playing mandolin. That's cool. Yeah, a lot of times, like, I can't get a whole lot of volume out of a mandolin fingerpicking. But if you have fingerpicks on, like metal fingerpicks, you can definitely get a little more volume, and that'd be a fun thing to experiment with. I've never done it. I play a little, like, kind of fake finger style on guitar. I'm just kind of self-taught, and I don't have a great kind of alternating bass thumb going on, but it works for me sometimes, if I'm lucky. Let's see. Yeah, Alex is saying K and Ks are good for those internal pickups. Woo! James says he came home with a Nordic mandola, Lat mandola, the other day. Totally sporadic. Where did you stumble upon a Lat mandola? I've always wanted one of those. You do not see them that often. Not sure if you will keep it indefinitely, but maybe I'll keep it to experiment. Let me know if you ever want to get rid of it. I would love to know more about that. Yeah, the kind of the closest thing I have to a lat mandola is that cittern. But lat mandolas are, woo, that is awesome. I would love, send me some pictures. I want to see some pictures of that thing, James. Okay, so people want to hear the sunburst and the telly. Great, cool. All right, I'll pull up some electric instruments here. Might get a little hectic while I plug things in and unplug things, but. All right. These are all in like slightly different tunings at the moment, but I'll give you a sense. I'll be using this 1.14 nylon pick for a lot of this stuff. So, bridge pickup. So I've got this in G-D-A-D down a whole step. So F-C, F-C. Both pickups. And the twangy bridge pickup. There's the tenor telly. Got the country twang. Next up, so that tenor telly, I have if you look up tenor telecaster or whatever, like tenor telly on YouTube, I made a lesson on my other channel, my personal channel, kind of, or not a lesson, but a little overview of it. Fender made a run of tenor telecasters a couple years ago, and I'd always dreamed of one, and then when they came up, I couldn't say no. So this thing is more of a... Great, so this is G-D-A-E. This thing, the body of this, Gibson made in the 50s some 3/4 size, like quote-unquote student model 6-string guitars with this small body size. So it's hollow. It's got a little bit of volume without any pickups. But a friend of mine, Joel Eckhouse of Ernest Instruments in Maine, does a lot of cool work with old tenor guitars, or instruments in general. And so he got this instrument with a broken neck, 6-string. He made a new 4-string neck for it. And he totally refinished the body, put in new pickups, because the old ones were, I think he probably just got this thing as like a shell of an instrument. So they initially would have only had one pickup, 6-string, but these P90 dog ear style. So he put in 2 pickups and put on this Bigsby, so you get the Bigsby thing. And I love this thing. This is a very fun one. So neck pickup, nice and warm. Good like jazz set tone. Kind of middle of the road, a little more treble. And then the bridge pickup. brightest of them, but not as twangy as that Telecaster. All right, I'll catch up with the chat here. Nice. Jim found a buddy to practice with who's got an octave. That's always a nice sound. Let's see. Yeah, both tenors. That's more time for tenors. Let's see. Woo, nice. Peter's got a Clark. Those are beautiful. Austin Clark mandolin, or maybe I'm assuming a mandolin, but he also makes octave mandolins. Yeah, that's the thing. Like with K&K pickups, they certainly have a place, but you know, those piezo pickups, like often I just don't play in situations where I'm like, usually if I need to plug in or if I need to amplify myself, I either sit in front of a mic on a stand, or I really like those clip-on like microphones, because it's a little more natural sound. You can get the K&Ks to sound good, but often you need a little bit of EQ to really make them sound super natural. And the oh, the bass. I can well, the bass is a different amp. I'll do the bass another time. I'm a very mediocre bass player. By mediocre, I mean I'm a rank beginner. If you look on my Instagram, my personal Instagram page, just under my name, you can find me playing some bass on there. But yeah, I find that the clip-on mics is just like an easier way to just get in a nice natural sound with a little less work. A little more prone to feedback if you're playing with larger groups, but I tend to just play in smaller groups. Nice. Art of Fencing says got a new instrument, Hulabek. I've never known how to say that name. F5. Wanted to ask you, how long does it normally take for an F5 to open up and play in? It's my first archtop instrument. Cool. Well, congrats on the new instrument. In terms of, I definitely am in the camp that instruments do kind of change their tone over time. You know, I think it's generally a subtle thing. You're not going to hear your instrument like totally one day turn into something totally new. But I think it will over time change a little bit. Just the more you play, it really depends on how much you're playing, how hard you're playing, you know, stuff like that. It takes like hours of the instrument vibrating and kind of learning what it is now rather than being a tree. But yeah, it's a great process. You can always like record your instrument, try to record it in a really scientific way every couple months and try to keep that process really similar. And you can listen back and see if you're hearing anything. People love to talk about that sort of stuff on Mandolin Cafe. So if you're interested in getting down that rabbit hole, that's the place to do it. Ian says, as a guitarist, I've always been used to having first position chords available. Looking at mandolin, I tend to see G, C, and D, but then everyone seems to use these everyone seems to say use these shapes. So yeah, I mean there are open positions. So I'm on an octave mandolin now, but G, C, and D, classic. You can find a kind of open chord shape. So like here's an A, or some people, this isn't going to work on octave, but you can use that as an A. You can use this as an E, E minor, A minor. You know, you can find F, but I think it's good to get into. It's kind of like bar chords on a guitar. It's like, you know, if you need to play a B flat chord on a guitar, there's no great open B flat chord on a guitar. And maybe you just kind of end up naturally. So this is an A chord that a lot of people use. 2, 2, 4, 5. And that shape is great because once you're covering all 4 strings, you can just move it anywhere. You can move from A over to D, like you move from G to C, A to D. Your first finger is just kind of being a capo. So you get into that sort of like use this shape mentality pretty quick, and they're very useful. Ultimately, as you learn more shapes and chord inversions and things like that, you can get into kind of crafting what sort of A chord you want, for example. But I think the most important thing at first is to have some sort of A chord under your fingers that somebody throws a surprise A at you and they say, "Oh yeah, it goes to A here." You don't have to be like, "Okay, let me think," because at that point, the moment is gone. You just got to have something that's like kind of deep into your subconscious of like when somebody says A, you go to a shape, and that shape helps you kind of get a A, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D, etc. It's very logical. Any tips when it comes to tuning? I recorded some cover songs with the mandolin, but forgot to tune it. The song sounds okay, but the sound itself sounds really awful. So remember to tune it a lot. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You gotta tune, and sometimes you gotta tune. It's hard. Mandolins are weird to tune, but the more you do it, the easier you get. The easier it gets, and yeah, it's an important part. It's not very fun to tune. So Christine says, "Have you heard of Muddy Water Mandolin Co.?" I think maybe what you're thinking of is Big Muddy, formerly Mid Missouri, but I think now they're called Big Muddy. Great, flat top, flat back, American made mandolins. I love them. I've owned a couple in the past. They're making great. It's not the sound. It's not like a real classic bluegrass sound instrument because they're flat top, flat back, oval hole, round hole instruments. So they're not going to have that kind of classic F5 carved instrument, arched instrument sound. But they're really quality instruments. I'm a big fan, and they're pretty affordable when it comes to finding a American-made, hand-built instrument. It's probably one of the best deals out there. Oh, cool. Nordic Mandolas from Paul Hathaway. Traded in the guitar. Sold a couple camera lenses. Awesome. Yeah, instruments are not the worst place to have money because you can always... They're just kind of like... It's like buying houses in Monopoly. That's why I think about mandolins or instruments. You can always sell it if you need to. Yeah, so I've been playing a bunch of tenor guitars. Richard said, "What is that thing?" Yeah, tenor guitar. So I got to keep up with the chat here. I got to go a little faster. Electric Irish CD, Hillbilly Go Away. That would be fun. Yeah, Big Muddy. Okay, yeah, nice. Don't worry about the pick guard. If it gets a little scratch here and there, it just means you're playing it and you're enjoying it. All my instruments have a lot of scratches on them. You can find a way to take care of your instruments, but also I usually just take pick guards off. Like my Ellis's came with pick guards, took them off. I tend to take pick guards off most instruments. Jim says, "What shape B minor would you use going to D, B minor, G in Make More?" So, I would generally like it. Really, there's lots of options. You could do like this D. 2-4 open to B minor, 4-4-5 to what was the progression? D, B minor, G. So 2-4 open, and I'm not playing the E string on any of this. 4-4-5, and then open 2. Or you could do 7-4 open, then walk that down to 4-4 open, a little kind of drony sound. And then walk broke it down to open, open, 2. There's a couple options anyway. Gregory has a great question. Do you use open or bluegrass chords with Irish tunes, and does that change if playing faster or slower? Get a mandolin back here. I have a couple answers to that question. One is, so in general, with Irish music on like a really practical level, I just don't play chords. Because usually if I'm playing Irish music, I'm in an Irish session and there's a guitar, and the mandolin is not really a super traditional Irish instrument to be playing chords. It can happen, but in general, the mandolin is a melody instrument in Irish music. Moving on from that idea, essentially, I generally do not play chop chords on mandolin. What I tend to do, and I've got some lessons on my website about this, is use really, like kind of really simplified 2-string chords. You know, because the melody, if their melody is like, up there, if your chords are, you know, or if your chords have a lot of that treble in them, it's going to get in the way of the melody. So if the melody is there, I often am trying to play chords lower. So a lot of 2-string chords, occasionally 3-string chords, but really trying to simplify my chord shapes and structures and picking down to the G and D strings to stay out of the way of the melody. And using kind of like a cross-picking right-hand pattern. James says, I watched an interview with Ole Moeller, and I don't know how to say his name, but I love his music, on YouTube, and it turns out his current Nordic mandola has microtonal frets. Woo! Yeah, that'll, the world of microtonal frets is exciting. I've never gone down that rabbit hole, but I have friends who have. It seems cool. Whoa, Richard says, working on making a fretless octave mandolin, but currently stuck on what to do for the body shape and wood type. I'm going to be using a banjo neck. Any ideas? Oh, I don't have any ideas. I'm excited when you get it done. Definitely let us know. You could ask on Mandolin Cafe and see if people over there have ideas. But I look forward to seeing what you come up with. I've never seen a fretless octave mandolin. Let's see here. All right, I think I've caught it. If I missed anything in the chat, it's kind of been flying by, so. Oh, and I think I'm maybe missing some stuff, but Neil also kind of answered my question, or answered the same way I would have on the Irish chord question, saying, lately I'm using more 2- and 3-string chords, mostly on the G and D strings, mostly for accompaniment. Same here. That is the style I like to do. Any recommendations for armrests? So my favorite armrest is this thing, which is McClung, McClung. Is this sort of, it's got a little bit of kind of angle to it. It's a little bit bigger, a little more comfortable for my arm, nice and kind of rounded. But there's lots of different styles out there. So this one is made by Doug Edwards in Texas, Hill County String Works. Or you can look up McClung armrest, McClung, all one word, mandolin armrest. I like these, not sponsored. I have a bunch of these things. I've just always bought them, either new or used. They pop up on the Mandolin Cafe Classified sometimes. Yeah, that's what. But I know like there's lots of options. I've seen like Soliver armrests, and I think maybe Stumac sells one. Lots of different shapes and styles to choose from. Alex says, boring but useful. I accidentally bought some nickel-plated strings. They are tinier, but I actually prefer them now as the strings blend together better for and the E strings doesn't stick out as much. Cool. Yeah, it's definitely not a bad idea to experiment with different strings. And especially in like the electric world, if you've got a magnetic pickup on any instrument, you kind of need to use nickel-plated strings because the phosphor bronze doesn't conduct to the magnetic pickup as well. So you get like different your wound strings, if you're using phosphor bronze, come out a lot quieter than nickel or unplated strings. Alan says, Paul Hathaway makes his mandolins and other instruments from home in North London. Friend went to his house and bought an octave from him. Cool. Oh yeah, Hobgoblin. I wish I lived near I wish I had a Hobgoblin. That seems like a great store. Jill Ryan in Glasgow makes armrests. Cool. Yeah, some instruments are like, I got the main reason that I use an armrest is I had a Gibson A9 that they made in the early 2000s. And the binding on it was just super sharp. So it was just like uncomfortable for my arm to lay on. And that's not a problem that I have with any mandolin that I have currently, but that's what got me into the habit of having that armrest. Oscar says, I saw a study that said mandolin players are happier than the average guitar player. I like that idea, but I don't know what scientific journal that would have come out of. James says, when I bought my current Hathaway, I told my friend about it, and she told me he was her neighbor. Nice, yeah. The world of mandolins and mandolin builders and folk music is a small one. A very friendly crowd. All right, maybe I'll play another tune here. I'll play a tune, an old-time tune. Really been enjoying. It's on my website, and I just love this tune, and nobody else really plays it. Well, no, other people do play it. I just wish it was played more. So I'll play a little bit of Hollow Poplar. And thank you, Joe, for the super chat. For the amp electric bill fund. Yeah, the amp's just sitting on behind me, you know, chewing through pennies as we speak. So, I appreciate the super chat. I gotta find the right pick. What happened? There, just dump them all out. That's what I end up doing. I always try to keep my picks nice and tidy in a little bowl, but inevitably, like 5 times a day, I just need to pour it all out and get to the one I need. All right, a little bit of Hollow Poplar. On my website, great old-time tune in the key of G. I recommend you learn it and spread this great tune around. A little bit of hollow poplar. It's on my website if you want to learn it. I love it. Betsy says, D'Addario has a loyalty program. Enter the code from the string packets or the equipment on their website for points. Every now and again you get free shipping. Cool. Yeah, I've seen those things. I've never gone about putting all those codes in, but probably makes sense. I do love coupons in general. So, yeah, James says Hobgoblin has 2 stores in the States. I think I have ordered something from them in the past, but there's none local to me. There's one in like the Midwest somewhere, I think. Denise says, Hollow Poplar is my new go-to tune. Yeah, I figured you'd like that one. It seems like a Denise kind of tune. James says, Wanderslide is the tune I wish more people knew. So beautiful. I love Wanderslide. How does it go? There's a little bit of Wanderslide. Love that tune. Thank you, Edward, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Anyway, people choose to donate. There's lots of ways. They're all in the description. You can do the super chat thing. There's links to a PayPal. You can join me on Patreon. There's a bunch of patrons here in the chat. Y'all really help me keep doing this sort of stuff. And just a little shameless plug that the last month of my teaching private lessons is upon us. It's March. Happy March, everyone. And I am shutting down private lessons at the end of the month. There's not that many slots left, but you can find a link in the description of this video, lessonface.com/MandoLessons. If you want to grab a slot to do some one-on-one. I've been having a lot of fun on those. Catch up with the chat here. Oscar says, I think the mandolin has that optimistic, sort of warm sound. Yep, I would agree. And Ian says I also play claw hammer. Me too. That is definitely an optimistic sound. I love the sound of claw hammer banjo. Yeah, so double stops on hollow poplar. Let's see. I don't know if I've done like a play along or a simple to complex for hollow poplar. I should. So the melody is going like this, and I'll say the chords just so we can get a sense of what's going on. G, C, G, G, D, G. So we've got all in G, so I'm hitting a lot of G and D strings. Then it goes to a C here, so I'm just pulling a big old C chord. A lot of G, open G string droning. Kind of ending up with this. You can either do that big G chord or that G chord. D. So for that D, the D and A strings open, melodies on the E string, A. And the only kind of hitch in this tune is I like to put a C chord right here. So G, D and A string drones. Here comes that C chord. So it's like that C chord, but you need a melody note of a G on top. So open 2, 3, 3. And then back to G. A little idea on some double stops there. Let's see. William says, wondering what software you use to publish your music scores on the website. I've tried several and pretty much didn't like any. I went back to using pen and paper. I use MuseScore, M-U-S-E-S-C-O-R-E. It's great. It's free. It's cross-platform. I think it's open source. That's the one for me. You know, it probably doesn't do all the fancy stuff that Sibelius and Finale do, but it does more than I need from the standpoint of writing out some simple fiddle tunes. Yeah, Ian says, loving that tune, could be a good one on octave. Yeah, either of those, Hollow Poplar or Wanderslide would be great on octave. Yeah, Betsy says, seems like the chat is now in real time. I was noticing that. I wonder if something updated. It does seem like the latency is lower, which is great, because then, then I have a little more sense of like what people are actually chatting about. Cool. Joe says I have 3 lessons for Hollow Poplar. It probably means I do have that simple to complex. Ursana says I have so many problems with the concept of double stops. I'm going to sit down at some point and really focus my brain on it. Yeah, it's definitely kind of a steep learning curve because, I mean, for one, just the concept of double stops is hitting more than one set of strings at a time, which is something that we train ourselves not to do. You know, like hitting the wrong string when you mean to hit the A string and you hit the D string, like that's not ideal. So you kind of have to unlearn that habit in order to get back to kind of widening out your pick stroke. I would say watch that intermediate series I just put out. It's pretty dense, but that's really like the golden formula for me of how I approach double stops, and really kind of playing out of chord shapes, chord melody, all that sort of stuff is all in the intermediate series. You probably won't get it all in one go, but just kind of keep watching through it and it'll slowly sink into your brain. Christine says, I can pick out just about any tune, but I can't seem to get my hand to do that constant brush way you play. Any tips or exercises to work on and unlock my hand? Yeah, so take a tune like a good one I like to use is Flop-Eared Mule, and take it from a combination of long notes and short notes, and turn it into all eighth notes. So you're repeating a lot of so that's going to get your right hand doing this constant down, up, down, up. It's going to work out any right hand pick direction issues you have. And you can widen that out to just hitting like all the strings. It doesn't sound great. But that's going to loosen up your right hand so then you can dial things back in and get... That's a big one. Adele says, I like ABC. Yeah, I've never done a whole lot with ABC. I've got a bunch of friends who use ABC. ABC is great because it's really compact. My bandmate in Maine, Julia, has a little book with just like the first phrase of a bunch of tunes she needs to remember written out in it in ABC. So you can just like write out a bunch of letters and all of a sudden you've got a tune written in like that much space. Very handy. James, thank you so much for the super chat. James is currently doing a 100-day practice challenge. I've seen a bunch of people doing. Anyone else doing the 100-day practice challenge? I've been seeing it on like Instagram, and my friend Alyssa Schneckenberger's been doing it, and I know James is doing it. I haven't jumped on the bandwagon yet, but that would be fun to do. Maybe I should give that a try. Strings and Such says, what are we doing? We are talking mandolin. Welcome to the MandoLessons live stream. All things mandolin and traditional folk music. That's what we're all here geeking out on. So let's play a little bit of Connomann's Rambles. I'll do a little speed round, get your mandolin tuned up, answer some of these questions really quick, and then play a little Connomann's Rambles, great Irish jig in the key of D. Yeah, so it's more figuring out what note is the other string. It's in the intermediate series, and again, it's very dense, but it does require, you need to know the melody. You need to know the chords that are going over the melody. You need to do that exercise of playing the tune while saying the chord changes. And then you got to break it down. So every time the chord changes, you have to stop the tune and say, okay, where are my drone strings? What are the other notes? How do I build these chords? You know, what notes make a chord and a D chord? It starts out with that kind of steep learning curve, but once you get it, then it starts turning back into muscle memory, and you use the same shapes over and over, and it gets a lot easier. Once you've worked that process through on half a dozen tunes in one key, you'll have a good sense of what to do for double stops. James says super chat is the hollow Poplar. I love all the funds that all these super chats are going to. We got the amp electricity fund. We got the hollow Poplar proliferation fund. Hoping for a play along on that one as I learn it. Awesome. Tenor Telly must have been a Fender limited run. Yeah, those are. They only did a really limited run of them, so they're really hard to find. Yeah, they were $500, and I think they maybe priced them too low because everybody snapped them up and they didn't make that many. And now, when they pop up on the internet, they're usually over 1,000 these days. I hope they do more runs of them. It seems like it would be in their best interest. The first run sold out so quick. So Adele says double stops and intermediate. So what episodes? So I did an intermediate series that you can find on YouTube or on my channel, and that pretty much the whole series is about how to work double stops into your playing. There's also on my website in the technique and fundamentals section at the bottom of that page, there's other lessons on double stop as well. Betsy says, Tam Lin is my kryptonite. So many notes. Yeah, that is a notey tune. So yeah, the 100-day challenge is something that's happened. It's like hashtag 100-day challenge, and you're working on just practicing for 100 days in a row. I don't know a whole lot about it. Tune a day is a similar sort of thing. Thank you, Ian, for the super chat, and Uncle Bobby. Awesome. Uncle Bobby's goes to the pedal board roadmap fund. Love it. So many funds. I'm going to have to start a spreadsheet. Any mountain music songs? Yeah, I play a lot of old American Southern Appalachian tunes. Anything on my website, if you search for old time tunes, that's the stuff that I love. Yeah, so Fergal Skyhill's got a tune a day session that's been going forever. And Christine as well for the super chat. Thank you very much, all for the support. Let's play a little Connomann's Rambles. Key of D, Irish jig. I'll play it through. I'll play the melody, you play the chords, then we'll swap back and forth. You play the chords. I'll play the chords and you play the melody. We'll lead you through it. Oh yeah, 100 days of practice. That's right. James has got the right. Maybe about that speed. 1, 2, key of D. I'll play melody. You take it. B part. I'll take it. This is a tune called the Connoman's Rambles. Maybe somebody can spell it out in the chat. Take it. Going out. All right. Well, I already been way over time. Well, not way over. A couple minutes over. It's time for you all to go off to Shannon Heaton's and Matt Heaton's Irish Jam. You can look up Shannon Heaton, Heaton, here on YouTube. They had an awesome guided intermediate session. Great Irish tunes. Even if you're just trying to pick along, I'm usually over there trying to pick up some tunes on a secondary instrument or something. Great time. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Oh, what's next week's tune gonna be? Let's see if we can get that in here real quick. Oh, Hollow Poplar next week. Yeah, that would be fun. Let me just make sure it hasn't happened really recently, but I don't think it has. It's just kind of recently popped back in my head. Come on. Come on. Gotta restart the old Google Drive here. Next week's tune. Let's see if Hollow Poplar. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for the super chats. I'm just gonna kill some time here while I look up Hollow Poplar. We did it episode 93, but let's do it again. All right, Hollow Poplar. Cool. Yeah, so there was this one thing I wanted to point out. I can't remember. Adele said, yeah, double stops, 3 strings, chord melody. I kind of use it all interchangeably. Ultimately, you can take anytime you're playing 3 strings or more, even full 4-string chords, you can always take that and just play 2 of the strings. It's still going to sound great. There, it's like technically a double stop then. I use it all kind of interchangeably though. You can only play 2 strings at a time on a fiddle, so I think that's kind of where it comes from. All right, let's see. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm glad the roadmap funds can also go to the smart Uncle Bobby. Yeah, thank you all so much. Have a great weekend. Velvet's practicing 40 hours a day. Love to see it. Don't forget to take breaks and stretch. Awesome. Yeah, great to see you all. Have a good weekend. Bye.